Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Be Good Daily, where we do cannabis news, culture, community. We are this series, first of all, has been amazing to get into the minds of different like business geniuses who have just started their businesses from the ground up, have worked really, really hard, have overcome a ton of obstacles. And we've just had such a phenomenal time just getting to know people, connecting with people, learning about their business model, what's in the future for cannabis and everything. So we're just so excited. This is episode 5, and we have a very, very special guest today, and so happy to bring this brother out because he is really killing the game. I won't talk him up too much, but I've learned so much from him over the past couple years since we first met, and I always admired his business from afar. Just the branding, the marketing, the business genius, and really, and I can't wait to dive into today about the future of cannabis and what they have in store for the next step. So without further ado, we're going to bring to the stage one of the co-founders and the leaders of MFused. Let's bring to the stage Mr. Jeff Freeman. There he is, Jeff.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Oh, it's excellent. I'm excellent. I'm so happy to be here. This is still a really new experience. As you guys will get to know, I spend a lot of time in my office, staring at my computer, just coming up with strategy and these ideas. So this is still new to me, but I'm here and I'm going to add a lot of value to this conversation. I'm going to help some folks out and give you a couple of nuggets of some really gems in here.
Hey, well, we're so excited to have you come here, join us at Be Good Daily. A lot of people, have been throwing me questions, sending me stuff in the email, and I know we have a list of stuff we want to go through, so we're going to jump right in. The first question I wanted to ask: are you in your office? Because that's a really nice office you have. Very nice aesthetics.
Hey, absolutely not. I am not in my office. I'm in a hotel.
Okay, I was gonna say he's like office. I was like, hey,
it's a vibe though. It's a vibe. They got the nice love signs behind me. It's like a little rock star hotel. So we're living good.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's jump into it, man. I met you a couple years ago. Have always been amazed by your business. Heard you speak on a Leafly panel, and I was like, yo, I got to get to know this guy because you were just talking about stuff that was just very futuristic. And just a little bit about yourself and your company. So tell us about yourself and what you did before MFused and how you got started.
Yeah, so cannabis had a really big impact on my life very early on, but it was more of a tragedy. And so, when I was 3 years old, my dad was murdered over a drug transaction. And so for me, cannabis was something that I really stayed clear of. Both guns as well as what I consider at the time drugs. And it sort of came full circle later on in life. I was at the University of Washington. My mom was sort of looking into alternative medicine. She had some ailments she's trying to work on. And she was like, hey, I'm thinking about stepping in, touching this plant and using these products because I've heard it could help, and really just desperate for help. And, I started to really spend time researching the benefits of pharmaceuticals, but also some of the negative things that kind of follow trend there. And so, I owned a custom apparel business at the time. I've been an entrepreneur like my whole life. It's always been wake up, go get it, eat what you kill. And so I kind of got exposed to the cannabis space very early on. Like I said, it was really a tragedy initially, but now I'm really taking it on myself to turn it into a triumphant story. And so we're not just here to win today, we're here to win forever. And what that really means is just we're getting after it. And so really blessed to have found this conduit, this avenue for me to really have this incredible impact on, because I find that it also creates this opportunity to have a great impact on people. And so, yeah.
Nice. And tell us about, talk about the beginning forms of MFused, right? And what went into that planning and how you guys got started in the industry.
Yeah. So, I like to say unlike, but let's just say before it was really cool and acceptable and lower risk, we were already involved. And so what I will do is let's go to that legacy market. Early 2009, I started kind of exploring this space a little bit. I'm an entrepreneur by nature, and I found that I could have, again, this really unique impact, particularly because I was like, wow, I see a retail, I see a medical dispensary dispensing cannabis products. And so my introduction was, hey, let's go in here and see what products they offer, just so that I could sort of see if there was credible operators, what's really going on. And I came in and I found that there was like this really a large group of people that had a lot of passion for cannabis, but didn't necessarily have the science to back what they were saying. It was really community based, and I really appreciated that. But I felt that I could kind of level that up with my desire to really develop industry. And so very early on, we saw, RSO products, and we would see products that really just didn't have any testing whatsoever. And so we thought, hey, maybe there's an opportunity for us to, number one, look at best practices in other relevant industries that are extracting essential oils, and sort of theorize whether we could do that with the cannabis plant. And CO2 machines was something that kind of pulled up on our radar. People were using those for hops extraction as well as coffee extract, and we're like, hey, if we brought cannabis to the forum. And so like I said, we just kind of it was a natural fit for us. We found that, hey, we could have this really big impact, professionalize this space, but still be a part of the community. And I think that's been our guiding light. And so a lot of this is self-taught. And I think that pursuit of knowledge and constant iteration and getting better has really permeated the culture of our company. And it's frankly why we are succeeding, because we're not just like, hey, let's plant the flag in the ground and then protect the flag. It's like, hey, guess what? Well, we're nomads. We're constantly moving, iterating, and advancing the technology. So,
right. And where did MFused, where did that name come from? And talk about the logo design. What tell us about how that came about.
Yeah. So one of our co-founders, Matt, came up with the name. We previously had a different medical marijuana brand name before MFused, and faced sort of the challenges of going and becoming more public. I was coaching high school football. I really wanted to be behind the scenes. I was doing it both just to kind of learn, but didn't really want to put myself out there because I was worried that, hey, man, I could get caught up and go to prison, right? And so that was a big problem for me. And so we ended up with our name sort of being licensed by another company because we didn't protect ourselves. And so then we had to pivot. And it was like, okay, well, what do? We make marijuana products. And it was like, okay, well, just marijuana infused or MFused. And so a little bit of a tongue twister. It's not so easy to remember. Some people forget it. But fortunately, once you really get it, you get it. And then, the logo is actually sort of paying homage to an extraction technique. So you have your tubes, right? And then you have your collection basin, and then your drop falling into it. So pretty soon you'll be seeing that animated. You'll see the oil travel through the tubes, drop into the basin. And so it's been pretty cool. I think, me and my partners, Young, Adam, Jeremy, we really care about not just promoting the cannabis plant and just walking around with cannabis leaves, especially early on, because we wanted to professionalize the space. And so we went with something a little bit more street, more like Vans, but not too edgy. And that's kind of like what kind of crafted the branding really early on.
That's amazing. We talked a little bit, and I didn't know that. That's really cool about the logo piece. And I can't wait to see the animation on that. We talked a little bit, Jeff, about like your business model, right? Where you guys focused on the branding, the logistics, the distribution, like very, very early on, right? And the quality, right? Can you talk a little bit about like what that process was like, saying, hey, this is what we're going to focus on? Because there's so many different business plans that people had in I-502, right? And to go that route was very, very, forward thinking. And walk us through that.
Well, I think the diversity of our team, the talent of my executive team and my partners and myself, I think just really we think things through. And we have different economic statuses, we have different backgrounds to pull from, and so what we're looking at is what's best practice in these other spaces. We really looked at the end of Prohibition, what happened through that scenario, and it sort of framed that while there's this incredible opportunity in cannabis, there's also an incredible opportunity to just kind of have FOMO, fear of missing out, constantly doing every single thing that has to do with touching the plant. And we thought really early on that if we could specialize, we could aim small, miss small, and just be laser focused on developing really great products, be really good formulators, integrating emerging technologies, that position right there would kind of give us an edge. The challenge in that has always been the educational component.
Right.
There's that kind of coaching people along. We have products that we haven't been able to release because they're probably 2 or 3 years ahead, just because folks aren't prepared to accept their value or understand them, just because they're not as fully developed on their customer journey. And then frankly, to be really honest, we had to really specialize because we're self-funded. And that's a byproduct of understanding what your real resources are and what we can do. And if we kind of lock ourselves in the room and slowly build our team, we'll be owner operators. We'll figure it out. We'll iterate as fast as possible, but we can't really bite off more than we can chew. So, we chose purposely not to build the shrine to cannabis, the cool factory, because we're like, we're getting these, what we call the cannabis tax. People are charging 2, 3, 4 times the rent. And it was because folks weren't aware, necessarily that the market would adjust. They're building businesses based on, the current price model, but not taking into consideration that it would commercialize, prices would come down. And so that sort of reinforced again that lean concepts, those lean manufacturing concepts. And so, we've kind of iterated as a business. I really credit my partner, Adam Malero, for developing that refinement technology at Eden Labs. And so what I said earlier about being self-taught, we're constantly looking at these newer technologies. And so one of the strengths of that is you know what's coming down the pipe. One of the weaknesses is it's hard to commit to certain things because something else is coming next. And so that's really permeated, I think, our culture, where when we decide to make a move, we make a move. And over time, we feel really lucky to be from Seattle, Seattle-based guys, UW guys, because of the technology sector, the data sector, a lot of really big companies. There tends to be a lot of talent. And so our conversations are elevated. We're not just talking about cannabis, right? And so I say frequently, I was like, there's a lot of people that understand cannabis. There's a lot of people that understand business. We really understand the cannabis business. And speaking to both demographics kind of gives us a real huge leg up. And, I think now if you were to really plant a flag and say, what is MFused? Well, first of all, MFused is a minority-owned company, and that's extremely important, right? Picking and choosing who we want to win with. But what do we do well? We make products. We're a CPG company, a consumer packaged goods company that integrates data, emerging technologies, and develops solutions for the market to be best in class in our product segment.
Yeah, that's a lot. And can you tell us what type of products, you have available like right now? And then maybe give us a secret what you have coming on in the future, if you're willing to share.
Sure. So what we specialized in was extraction. And so in our facility, we do CO2 extraction, we do distillation, we do, different refinement technologies, chromatography. And by having all of these different extraction methods, we're able to create these really unique sets of products. Our primary product right now that we're known for is vape. Right. And so we have tiered the vape space, where we have an entry-level product that has low THC, but still high purity in cannabinoids. Then we enter with which is called Balance. And then we have our MFused Twisted series, which is sort of a play on like the Ciroc alcohol. You want all the effects of cannabis, but you want to taste something that's a little bit more familiar. You're not necessarily willing to kind of jump into the full cannabis profile. Just above that, we have our strain series, where it's the distillate. So you're getting that high potency product, but you're getting the essence of a strain. And then our top tier product is Technique, which is a collaborative effort between us and local gardens, where we interview the gardener, we track down and tell their story about how they developed their business, similar to what you're doing, and just providing all that additional context around that product. And then recently, we co-founded and brought public our Polite brand, which is a phytotherapeutic cannabinoid product developed by clinicians doing clinical observations with emerging cannabinoids. So really high CBGs, CBNs, CBDs. So that way, number one, we could sort of pay homage to that early adoptive medical environment, but also advance that space, because we're willing to really leverage our distribution channel to make these products available to a lot of people at an affordable price. And I fully expect Polite to be an enormous company. I think the cool thing about it is we're really focused on known outcomes. So consuming products, assuming that different delivery mechanisms are going to create different effects, but also still guiding you towards that intended goal. And what that will do, we believe, is will help people understand their own customer journey so that they can consciously pick the right products and not just fall for marketing, right? Not fall for cool campaigns and, TNA, we call it tits and ass. So it's like, that's not what the cannabis community is really about. It's about sharing stories, sharing experiences, and cool products. So that's our thing.
Right.
And I will give you a nugget of a couple of things that we're working on. Number one, finally entering a multi-state expansion. So opening our Arizona outfit. We've got 2 or 3 other states queued up really, really close. And number two, really tapping into the F&B space, food and beverage space. And so looking at kind of where things are going and developing products that are more social with the end goal in mind to be a part of the safe consumption spaces that we hope that we see in the future. So like restaurants, bars, concert venues, where you're using products on a casual basis, not necessarily to get extremely sedated or high or whatever, but really just on consumption space, because we believe that the cannabis industry will be federally legal here sooner than later. And then you're going to have this entirely new industry that's developed similar to the bar and restaurant scene, where you're going to have places that are going to integrate cannabis. And so you're going to have this great opportunity to really affect and impact your direct community. And that's what's going to make cannabis mainstream.
Jeff, tell me this, because listening to you, it's like, I feel like I'm talking to the future right now, like in a good way, where I'm like, yo, how can I invest in this guy, right? But I guess the question I want to know is, what business minds do you like align with? Like maybe something outside of cannabis that you've like emulated, or companies that you really admire that, like, hey, they've kind of laid the blueprint. We kind of want to follow that pathway. Who are those people and what are those companies?
I mean, right away, I go to Elon Musk. That's a gentleman I have a lot of admiration for. He's an industry disruptor. I'm a disruptive person. I'm not afraid to kind of pave my own path, chop down my own trees, make my own trail. I think that is right away one of the guys we really look at. And then again, just kind of looking at how other industries develop, not so much on individual people, but really focused on, concepts that we can synthesize, bring in internally and develop. I also am a big fan of Jeff Bezos. With his AWS platform, his data collection, understanding the logistics, building small, just like him, we started in a 1-car garage. We've got big goals, maybe not to be the size of Amazon, but to really build and impact the community in a positive way. I think, those 2 guys for me are huge. And then, I have got a couple of personal guys that I follow up. I'm a big fan of E.T. Hip Hop Preacher, not necessarily a business, but a brand, how he brands himself. How he communicates, what his mission is behind his message, who he's trying to impact. And I think those industries have really impacted our company. I mean, we're from Seattle. I mean, we see Boeing, we see Amazon, we see Expedia, we see these guys, and we say, hey, you know what? Let's tap into some of their talent, right? Let's poach some of their folks and bring them into our team. Let's get these really big, deep thinkers, and let's intermix them with the cannabis guys that are extremely passionate. And let's see what we can do to rock the boat. Right.
No, I mean, that's huge. One of the things I was really impressed with, just talking to people that carry your product, like different stores. And a lot of people don't know, Washington State, you can't be vertically integrated. So, a lot of your customers are the bud tenders and, the buyers and the store owners, in addition to the customers who come in to buy the product. And talking to those people who have interacted with you or your company, they always say the same thing: excellent customer service. They are phenomenal with customer service. They are just really great to talk to. They're very educational. They give us great information. They're always on time, professional, just all these great things. And we talked about it a little bit too as well. Why is that so important? Why did you guys say value, we're going to focus on customer service?
I think we're so early in cannabis that it's the little details that set you apart. Customer service is one of them. Value is one of them, and honesty, right? In many businesses, it's speed, price, and value. And for us to have a competitive edge, I didn't have a marketing budget. Marketing budget was me walking my ass in the shop, talking to people, answering questions, giving the A1 pitch to the bud tender that got hired 2 days ago that took 10 minutes for me to figure out he was not even the manager or the buyer, just because I was happy to have his ear for like 2-3 minutes.
Right.
And I just believe that guerrilla style ground up approach, it's a slow dredge. It's a really hard process, but it develops a really strong foundation. And it turns out that bud tender becomes a manager. That manager becomes a buyer. And you've developed this rapport with them of honesty, and that relationship really becomes strong. And so I think with our approach as a business, we've almost presented this as a consultant. We consult the retailer, right? What are the solutions that we can help them in making? Because I have these ideas of what I want to bring to the table, what I want to do, and I could just be off by 1 inch and miss the bullseye. Or I can go directly to the source, the customer, the bud tenders, the buyers and owners, and say, hey, what do you need? What are you guys looking for? And create and rethink and make some creative solutions. And, I would say I would not necessarily suggest our approach unless you are like privately self-funded and you have to do it, just because there's a lot of uncertainty. It's really slow. I spend a lot of time away from my family. But more importantly, we think that we're so early in cannabis that it's important to build community. And while we may not do a lot of community events, having that accessibility to one of the owners, I think just creates this narrative where I know folks have never met some of the owners of these companies, and so they can't relate. And then for me, how I iterate and change my business is based directly on my interactions with them, as well as the consumer data that I pull to really synthesize to make sense of things. So,
right. And tell me this, you just said it, building community. What does that look like to you, right? Like, what does building community and you have said it a couple times. We had a great discussion. We, had a 30-minute conversation. We scheduled a 30-minute conversation before this to talk about what we were going to talk about. We ended up talking about for 90 minutes, right? And you talk so much about building community not just around you, but within the culture with your employees, with MFused, right? Starting there. Tell me, what does building community mean to Jeff Freeman?
For me, it really means identifying people who have talents, but not necessarily the pedigree, right? I need folks that have the skills, the acumen, and the ability, but I'm not prejudiced by just checking CVs and resumes. I want to find, interview, talk to them, figure out what they're passionate about, and then really create a career path for them. What I told you the other day on the phone is, our company's doing really well. We got big sales, multi-state expansion, and I just turned 35 years old. You could probably just sell this shit and just walk out and be retired, maybe in a year or two.
Right.
But instead, I want to crack the door open. I want to open that door and make sure that I get as many people that look like me, sound like me, that took their own path to get here. I get them involved in the space. And more importantly, I don't just get them in, but I coach them up and teach them how to grow and develop in the space, giving them skills that not only makes them appealing to me and other companies, but if there is a consolidation period, if there is a big liquidity event, a public event, or you have a Coca-Cola that steps in, I want to make sure that they can work for them. Right? I want to make sure they have the skills, they got the chops to sit in that room, hold their own, and they're respected. Because what's interesting is those folks truly care about the plant. They truly care about the community. Whereas what you're going to see is a lot of folks that care about the business. And the more people we have that understand the cannabis business, the more managers that we develop, the bigger our concepts that permeate both our company and other companies, the bigger impact that we're going to have. And so for me, community is not just hiring from my local community and people that are, maybe disenfranchised or overlooked, but also making sure that the cannabis community as a whole is entrenched in the future of cannabis.
Right. No, that makes sense. A question I had, is there a do-over that you wish, like, I wish I did this differently, or something that you learned along the way that you kind of wish you maybe had a do-over at all?
Yeah, I think what's really important is I do a lot of self-reflection. I think that's a really healthy thing. You can over-reflect, but I think it's critical to like personal health. There's a few things I wish I would have spotted, a few trends I wish I would have spotted. I'll speak more towards trends, do-overs, because we were so early in cannabis. It's hindsight's 2020, right?
Right.
Applying for our licenses, really navigating and pushing for equity positions in the market. Those are things. Applying for retail licenses, just because there's so much value in that channel. When I speak to most people, they just assume we're in a retail. Like, oh, I tell people
Right.
I'm cannabis, and like, what shop? I'm like, every shop. But 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 that's not what I mean. I'm like, we're Coca-Cola. You better watch out. And
Right.
but then there's these ancillary businesses that I think are there to support cannabis. You get a lot of publications, but I think of things like vending through ATM machines. I think of traceability and CRM integration. And so there's that. I think of like the data component of optimizing a facility, optimizing a sales force, optimizing consumer data. Those are ancillary businesses that I wish I would have got into earlier. I still think we're solid 3 to 5 years ahead on people on most of that. We kind of have some trend lines there. And also just understanding that, you kind of need to just get involved in the space to learn, understand that it's a marathon. But then when you find something that's a really good fit for you, you have to go for it right away and don't be apprehensive. I think as a company, the first couple of years going into the recreational environment, even though we had been in the medical space, we had sort of the overconfidence that, oh, wow, people know who we were. There's medical marijuana. So many of these people went over here. They're going to buy our products. And I got a bit frustrated that we hit the complete reset button on the customer's expectations. And I realized that, most people using cannabis don't have a whole lot of experience in cannabis. And so it's really hard for them to value or know what to value when it comes to products. And, instead of being sort of hard-headed, like I have a tendency to be, and kind of like we're going that way, I kind of had to start, being more of a lateral thinker and rethink my strategy. I think we played it the right way. It was extremely humbling pivoting from like what I considered a boutique product into a mass market product, just because everybody's championed that they're making the best products that they can make. And I'm sitting here talking about my business strategy for the last 5 years straight. And so then now fast forward, it's like, yeah, the business strategy was the right way to go, but it sucked for quite some time. So I would just say the application license process, tapping in with your local universities to see if they have career paths to get you in cannabis. And then also just, making sure that you're pursuing something that you're really passionate about, and finding a way to integrate cannabis with that versus trying to be someone's solution.
Right. That makes sense. How do you guys use customer data or data to spot trends, then to figure out, okay, this is the product that we should probably be doing? Because I know you're already planning for 2022, 2023. The way you talking, you already got stuff down your sleeve. How do you use that data to dissect, to read it, and then figure out what products you potentially should be coming out with?
Well, in full disclosure, I didn't have a background in data. Data was intuitive. That's why I'd walk into the shops and talk to people and read the store and assess where the energy is, where's the focus, what are the new emerging products. Just because you've got people kind of, they're all behind the scenes, right? People weren't public. And so now you're seeing more public information. And what we do is we pull down the public data based on the transactional data. It has to be made public based on the Freedom of Information Act. And because cannabis is not federally legal, what we do with that information is we tear it down, we synthesize it, and we identify opportunities, areas of opportunity, right? There's price points that are unmet. There's product segments that are underserviced. And then there's different pockets throughout the state, each state, where the demographics based on, localized income, socioeconomic status or focus. And then what we do is we create a comprehensive approach per region based on different products. And then when we go back and we break down and we make products, we just want to make things that are best in class, but still affordable. And that really kind of triggers when you go to retail. So people feel like, wow, you have a solution for this, you have a solution for that. And on a bigger scale, really just a collection of data is allowing us to better understand what decisions we should make and what we shouldn't, right? If you're just sitting in a room and just talking to people or your friends, and you only have a sort of this very narrow scope and perspective, you may very likely make the wrong decision. But no different than reading books and having mentors, you're getting this additional perspective that's going to permeate your decision making and help you kind of guide you the right way. And then again, similarly to checking on other industries, we try to track trend lines, right? You're seeing Great Notion, the flavored beer companies popping up where they're now using, terpenes and making peanut butter and jelly beers. That's exactly how we've been building MFused. This exact same concept. And so we saw that with the beer space, but we've done that in the cannabis space. And so, those are the kind of things we're talking about. But also, not everything that you do has to be revolutionary or a new concept. You just have to improve on it, right? There's one phone, and then there's another phone. There's an analog keyboard on a BlackBerry, and then there's a touchscreen keyboard. Those things are improvements. And so it's not always revolutionary ideas. It's just upgrades and iterations.
Right. Now that makes sense. What, do you feel like the market in Washington State, and I've heard people say, well, if you can compete here, right, because you can't be vertically integrated. So we know that, your margins are paper thin and you got to have everything be highly efficient, top quality. And I've heard people say, hey, if you can compete in the Washington State market, other markets where you could potentially be vertically integrated or have, a potential to, be able to get to the end customer, you'll be able to survive. Do you feel like that is true? And do you feel like Washington State has prepared you to go elsewhere?
Yes. So, Washington State and Colorado were the two states to legalize the same day. And Colorado's model was vertical integration and migration of the medical community into the adult use space and preserving the medical community. And Washington, their model was sort of open licensing for the most part. Let's get as many people open and involved. That's a very a fair way to get everybody an opportunity. And what we've seen is states that have followed the Washington model, like Oregon, have really put a tremendous amount of pressure on the operators, and it's made it really difficult to be successful. Meanwhile, the states that have allowed for vertical integration have kind of given the protection and guidance in these new markets so that people can get the entire value out of the product. And so what Washington has done for us and what we believe is, by the lack of vertical integration, and to your point, not being able to have a lab and a retail, has really made me cut my teeth and earn my keep, earn my shelf space, be real scrappy. When other shops and other vendors have lags in inventory, I'm there showing up, filling that inventory. I'm getting those sales because those customers are coming through the door. Now, the challenge with that is we had no leverage with retailer, and so it quickly became the lowest cost provider in the country. And what does that mean? That means as a company, as an industry, like you said, you've got to run a business on paper thin margins. So you've got to know how to shave pennies off of pennies for you to make money. It forces you, in essence, to compete. You're in high school and you're competing with collegiate level athletes, and then when you go back and you compete with high schoolers, you're like, wow, this is fun. I got a lot of opportunity. And the challenge has been in Washington State, not many groups that I know of, there's a few of them, have been able to actually get out of that environment and go into these other markets, and almost none of them are self-funded. Right. So if they are going out of the market, then you're entering the space where you're having outside funding who's really steering your direction, but not necessarily having the owner operators be able to make the decisions. And so for us, when we come down and we say we analyze the Arizona space, where there's license scarcity, there's vertical integration, what has happened is they've got some really strong operators in terms of running an enterprise, a grow, a retail, a processor, but there's not a whole lot of people with technical proficiency in their specific field or laser focus. And we're extremely laser focused on, like you said earlier, consumer packaged goods, product development, formulation, sales and distribution, and data. And most of the companies it's really hard to tell folks that when you're making a lot of money that you're not as technically proficient as you should be. But then when someone else comes and shows up, you're like, that's what it looks like. And you're right. That's LeBron James right there. Like, I thought I was balling. That dude's 6'8" and he's jumping out the gym.
Right.
I have to reevaluate a couple of these things. And so, yes, to your point, Washington has shaped us to actually be able to build a national brand. And because we see the commercialization of cannabis, and so we're able to enter these spaces with sort of a little bit of foresight of where things will go, not necessarily how quickly they'll evolve, but the benefit of that is being so over-regulated is what I feel in Washington State, gives you this autonomy and freedom and opportunity in these other spaces. And as those new states start to regulate, as customers start to care about product quality, you're already used to doing that. The current operators in those new markets struggle to conform to the new market, and all
Right.
you're doing is staying consistent and stay in the course. And so, yes, I agree with that.
How do you, what's like your flagship product? You talked about a little bit about all the products that you guys, have and best in class, but what's that one flagship product that you're like, yo, this is my baby right here. This our jam. Okay.
Okay. It's hard. That's a really difficult question to pick one. I've got to be honest, but I'll say I'll say the flagship product for me, because I think if you were to poll me and my partners, you'd have a different answer, right?
Okay.
Because we pour our passion into these things. I would say our flagship product is our Technique series, and that's the custom hardware that we develop with C-Cell and Jupiter. It's the ability to collaborate with those local gardens, going and meeting those growers, telling their story. If I want to make something that I think is unique, best in class, I got to have the best products, right? I don't even get a chance to grow. I have basically not formal contracts, but agreements with farmers that grow for us. But if I really want to make something unique and great, I've got to be really getting somebody else's passion. I've got to collaborate with somebody else who's just as passionate about their cultivation. I find that our Technique series, I've tried a lot of carts. And I think from a hardware standpoint, from a new technology standpoint, in terms of the forced decarboxylation of products so that it won't crystallize, as well as the story, I don't really think there's a comparable product in the country right now. I've been in every market. I've seen all kinds of products. And so many folks, I think, are doing more self-promotion and brand promotion and not really correlating the true value of their products to the product quality. I look at MFused kind of like a platform. At this point, we're a distribution company in Washington. And now we get to collaborate with all these artists, all these extraction and cultivation artists, and make these products. And there's a whole narrative behind that we plan to record and show people, because that's how you develop this sommelier substantive experience behind the cannabis plant. So it's not just THC, best looking color, and price, which isn't necessarily that. And I gotta mention again, our Polite series that we have going on with these physicians and these formulations is truly revolutionary. And I say that knowing that that's a really bold statement. But from a business concept, from a formulation concept, from an emerging technologies concept, there is truly no competitor to that, right? I know there's other people that make phenomenal cartridges. There's no one in the lane on the Polite series making those products that are for daily wellness and with known outcomes. No one. Right. I've looked everywhere. And so from that standpoint, that's a blue ocean product. It's probably 2 years ahead, and we don't really care. We're just going to keep pounding that education until people really understand the value of that product. And it's a disruptive technology because there's a lot of folks making like wellness products,
right?
But they're not science-based. They're not value-based.
Right.
There's no real known outcome. It's really just, novel, and they're in it, which I think is important. But having those physicians backing products that are putting their reputations on the lines as MDs and is a pretty big, responsibility for us. But I think what we've done is we're still kind of working the last minute kinks out, but I think we pulled off the big one.
And how the Polite series, how would people be able to go and get that? Is that direct to consumer online? Is that through I-502, Washington State?
So the brand was developed to not use THC as a primary catalyst for the effect, but a part of the full spectrum profile. So what we've developed is a line that has very low THC, but really rich with CBGs, CBN, CBDs, as well as Ayurvedic herbs that potentiate the effects, that really encourage the effects. And we have that both in the adult use environment, and we are releasing that in the over-the-counter hemp environment, the CVS, right. Walgreens, that. So right now we're just focused on the adult use environment, just because there's even more protection. Unfortunately, CBD is getting kind of a bad rap, in my opinion, for some areas. And it's because there's no real oversight. There's no regulation. And so you've got people making claims. And so you have the FDA all over it trying to regulate it because people are, making some outlandish claims. Whereas at least in the adult environment, you have the seed to sale traceability scenario, you have testing, you have lots, you have batch sizes. And so while there's more regulation, what happens is those people that are, not all of them in the hemp space are this way, but many of them that are focusing on making wellness products are not necessarily willing to operate with that regulation, right? So they prefer to avoid. And so our big emphasis right now is the adult use and getting that into 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 states here in the next 18 months. And that brand was developed to be in multiple states and complement a THC portfolio. But we will also be pursuant of the hemp space with applied products because we do want to make them direct to consumer and a little bit easier in terms of access, not depending on having an adult use store close by.
Right. No, that makes sense. I felt like at one time, everybody was doing CBD stuff, and kind of still are. And it was like, you saw CBD pillows. There was a pillow on Brookstone where I swear to God, and they infused it with a pillowcase. And I was like, what? I was so confused. And they're like, yeah, and they infuse it with the pillowcase. And when you lay down, it transfers to your face. And I was like, and then what? Right. It was like, then what's the next step? I think they discontinued that product, but sure. It was like laughable. And to hear you talk about the science piece, because we haven't heard that the science piece behind the product and then the outcome to that is really kind of forward thinking, because we all know that this is a plant. It's it provides comfort to people, right? And to have like scientific outcomes and also to collect that data will be super useful. What do you think is the future of the cannabis industry? Like, let's say legalization happens tomorrow, right? MORE Act passes the Senate. Cannabis legalization is all across the country. What is MFused doing?
MFused? I think MFused will be doing an international play.
Oh, okay.
That will be happening. Actually, I know that it's happening. But I really think the future for MFused is a distribution company. I think we're going to be a product development company that distributes across the country. Our hub will likely be in the Pacific Northwest, our home, but we'll also have a hub in the Midwest, the East Coast, and we will be a national brand.
Wow.
Our product development, our product diversity, our theories are really profound. Most markets are all about how do I get into a market, how do I make money, how I pump and dump, and not really have the passion, right? And so I think our product mix, our portfolio is really unique in that we're more like a Coca-Cola, right? We have, Aquafina, we have Mountain Dew, or they have Sprite, right? They have Coca-Cola, they have Aquafina, they have all these products. And I think we're going to fall more in line with that than anything. Mm-hmm. But like I said earlier, I think the real future, things that get me really excited are all the other businesses that will support the cannabis space. As we destigmatize the plant, you're going to have the pharmaceutical component, the wellness component that is developed, the fibrous component from hemp and the textiles, and then, of course, just the adult use and safe consumption, right? You're going to have a 5% cannabis beer, and it won't be 5% THC. It won't be 5 milligrams THC, it'll be 5%. And you'll have these consumption spaces where people are using products and they're integrated into their life. I also see as the minor cannabinoids emerge, as with these newer technologies developed in the hemp environment, when you see this intersection here, I believe in the next 5 years, you're going to have an industry that's similar in size and capacity as the alcohol space and the nicotine space. And so imagine all of the ancillary businesses that support that: logistics, marketing, restaurants, beer companies, vape shops, convenience stores. That's what you're going to see. It's going to become available and accessible. And so I kind of tell people this all the time. I want people to get into it now so that they're prepared to identify those opportunities, because it's all about timing. And if you're not exposed, you didn't miss the boat, we're so early on, there's no point of trying to win the game right now. We're not even, this is practice. Al and I were saying, we're talking about practice. We're not even in the game, not the game, practice.
Right, right.
We're not even in practice. We're still like picking the team on the fence.
Right.
Team. And so, I just think that the future of this space and for us is in both domestic distribution, product development, and I could totally see MFused becoming an incubator company to help develop some of these ancillary businesses. We've got goals in the tech space on the, biometric tracking of products and being able to help you track your consumption, understanding vapor density, so you know exactly the number of servings that you need for your outcome. When it comes to the wellness side, teaching people how to microdose and introduce natural herbs into their products. Once you really destigmatize cannabis, it'll just be like any other product, right? It'll be like I don't want to say fish oil because that's a terrible one, but you know what I mean? It'll be like, acai berry, fish oil,
Yeah, anything.
every other industry. And so now all of a sudden you'll see rinse, wash, repeat from a lot of those products be developed with cannabis. And that's where we see things going. So I see the food and beverage space really being the primary catalyst for the future for our company, with the extraction being a conduit to be able to get there.
Got it. And, I know we're coming down to our end of the show, but I have two more questions because you've dropped so many dimes today. Okay. And so much information. The first question I have is, so I went to your website and you guys have this new tool where you can go in, plug in your address, right? And you can be able to go shop at the closest store with you and order that product. And it really reminds me of when, you had Domino's versus Pizza Hut. Domino's went the route of the technology, logistics, distribution route, right? And then Pizza Hut was like, they didn't really get it, right? And now Domino's is everywhere. And people are like, everyone's like, oh, I always love that Kevin's putting my pizza in the oven at 610 and Mary's taking it out and doing quality check. Like they can follow it. Tell us about why technology was so important for you guys to be at the forefront of that, because I thought that was genius, right?
So I think there's two answers to it, and I'll tie them together. My partner, Adam Malero, his background is an engineer, and he worked on future technologies for the cellular business. So in his mind, he's an engineer. He thinks of technologies, right? He values them. That's transferred over to me in terms of the product development, sales, and distribution. And what we found with COVID, even before COVID, was where can we find an edge, right? Where can I find an edge? It's not just being opportunistic when people miss deliveries or they misunderstand their sell-through rate or their inventory cycle, but also accessibility. And because in Washington State, we don't have delivery services, we noticed this trend by speaking with retailers that a lot of consumers were shopping online because they didn't want to sit in a shop. They didn't want to stand in line. They wanted that convenience, right? We're all sort of getting inundated by convenience. You've got your applications that you can order food and drinks and even alcohol on. And right. So we really started to think about that. We're like, okay, well, at some point, of course, in Washington and maybe in other states, you're going to be able to go on and order your alcohol. And so if you were going online, how would my brand be represented? And then we started sort of creating that solution and deciding, hey, you know what? Let's develop an online ordering portal for on our website that'll interface you directly with the closest retailer so that you can find our products and cross-reference price. Right? That way it's very natural, because what happens in Washington State is, in essence, the retailers are dictating the price, right? We sell everybody the same, and some people charge more, some people charge less.
Right.
47% of that price is tax. So it's not easy on us to iterate. And so we just wanted to make sure that access was made available. Also, really just kind of keeping track of those trends where there's online purchasing, with the goal in mind that when you have federal legalization, we potentially could also be navigating customers to our site so we can be in even more control of the customer journey. You'll be buying them directly from MFused.
Right. Now that makes sense. And then you're able to collect all that data and information, dissect it, and try to, figure out, read it, and see marketing trends. The last question I have before we wrap up is, let's say somebody does not want to get into the industry touching the plant, right? They don't want to grow it. They don't want to process it. They don't want to be a retailer. What other ways do you feel like is an emerging industry that a lot of people kind of aren't really aware of, that people can get into, right? And they don't have to do anything, touch the plant and, sell it or anything, but they can get into an ancillary business?
Sure. I think for me, I tend to focus on technology, because those are scalable, more affordable initial upfront in terms of upfront cost to kind of support businesses. My buddy Jerry Tyndall, he created a company called Soro, and they're a CRM company that helps us manage our vendor relations. And so he doesn't touch the plant at all, right? And so for him, he's helping us operate and run our business more efficiently with more transparency. And we really focused on stuff like that. And so I think that if you have that ability in the tech space to kind of think of sales support, customer support, search engine optimization, not generally, but really focused, as well as things like marketing and photography. One area that I'd really like to see developed, and it's kind of counterintuitive, there's two things, is watchdogs. So I'd really appreciate if there was folks that were, qualifying products and making sure that both the state, the stores, and the brands are offering products that are that have high integrity, they're high quality,
Right.
and accurate. That's a little bit of a disruptive concept just because that's like counterintuitive, but because I'm in this for the long haul, that's something that's necessary to gain, customer trust, right? And that'll also
Right.
sort of cut through the crap, right? Because like, hey, this is not accurate. But
Right.
then again, like things like staffing agencies, event services, things that support businesses, not touching the plant. In fact, I almost suggest not touching the plant. Touching the
Yeah.
plant is extremely risky in terms of like having capital and taxation. You have 280E, not being able to have traditional business write-offs. It's really, really hard. We all think it's the right way to go, but it might be better not to touch it. And so that's kind of my thing. And then of course, analysts, people that are developing and aggregating data to create a better picture. I think the biggest companies in the world are data companies, and so
Right.
I imagine the data-driven companies, not both from a product standpoint, but also ancillary businesses that are supporting data, are going to be some of the biggest cannabis companies naturally.
Right. Right. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. One of the compliance companies we just, we worked with when they first started, and I think now they have a lot of the producer processors in Washington State and have moved elsewhere. I was laughing because I remember when they first started and they were just trying to get customers. And then I looked on and they were giving out jobs now starting at 6 figures. I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong industry right now. You know what I mean? How can people find you, Jeff? Like what is your Twitter handle or Instagram handle, and MFused's Instagram handle? How can people follow you guys?
Yeah, so I haven't spent a whole lot on time on social media, so I'm really just queuing this up. My social media handle on Instagram is jeff.freeman.jr. I believe it's the same thing for Twitter. Our Instagram handles for the companies are MFused Culture, so MFUSEDCULTURE, as well as Technique by MFused, Stay Polite, so STAYPOLITE. A bird just ran into my window. That's weird. Whoa.
I hope
Uh,
it's okay.
like The Shining over here. What's happening, man? And so got to Stay Polite. And our website is, mfused.com, www.mfused.com. Guys are going to see a lot more of me. We're going to start building on this thing. And a key is I just really want to be a conduit and a resource to kind of help people. And so you'll see me more active on there. I'm really getting my mind right and prepared for this being in front of people, because that's not a natural thing to me. I'm so deadly serious. I just want to add some value when I talk to folks, because I don't just have back and forth banter. I'm on a whole nother vibration a lot of times. So ease up. I gotta smoke a little bit just to sit down and chill because I'm a little bit edgy. So those are
Hey,
the
Jeff, you were phenomenal. Hey, you were phenomenal today. And the one question that I always end the interview with, and because our show is called Be Good Daily, which is just a homage to just be good to yourself and be good to others. What is one thing that maybe you did today with being good to someone else or being good to others that you live by, that you want to just be good just in general?
I think one thing that I do on a daily basis is I try to connect with the people that are like with me and around me. I try to really immerse myself with them and really just value their time personally. That's partly why I'm so serious, because I want to just have a real connection. I'm not a fake connection type of person. It's like, this is who I am. I'm authentic to it. But also just kind of giving guidance. I did a few interviews today, and I told the guys what I'm looking for, but I also told them, areas that they could find this information so they could develop those skills so that they could be a candidate for our company. And I felt like giving someone critical feedback and helping them understand where they can go with things is immensely important. It's not just yes and no. It's, hey, this is where you got to get. This is where I need you to get to for you to have the skill. And oh, by the way, this is not just for me. It's for your career development. So that'd be something I did today.
Awesome. Hey, Mr. Jeff Freeman Jr., so grateful for your time. So grateful for your knowledge. So grateful for you just being present and with us and just really sharing just so much knowledge. I can't wait to go back and listen to this interview again and just take down notes and figure out, okay, where do I need to go in the future? Jeff said this earlier. So just thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a guest on here. You're killing it. I love your vision. I love your message. Let's talk about some sustainable, food. Let's go. Let's get after a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Hey, I'm trying. I'm always, let me tell you this. I'm trying to do business with Jeff Freeman. Okay. So hey, I've said it live. Everyone's going to listen to it. I need to do business with you in some capacity, some type of partnership, synergy, whatever it is. It be authentic and real and for the people. So thank you, bro. I appreciate you.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.